The moment the final injury designations came out, something shifted around this team. There was this strange mix of relief and curiosity. Almost como esa semana entire tivesse segurado o falago y so agora pudes solta. Because all four Miami Dolphins players who entered Friday stuck in that limbo between maybe and please, just play, are officially set to go on Sunday against the New Orleans Saints. And that alone brings a different pulse. Not excitement, not confidence, something more raw, something more unsettled. Because when pieces return, expectations follow right behind them, whether anyone wants to admit it or not. Austin Jackson and Darren Waller walking out of injured reserve isn't some gentle easing back into rhythm. It's a jolt. You look at Jackson and immediately wonder how much weight he carries in the structure of this offense, even if no one is willing to say it out loud. Every time he steps on the field, everything around him shifts: timing, pockets, decision-making, the entire attitude of the line. And now he's back, not gradually working his way into snaps, but thrown straight into the active roster. What exactly does that stir? Confidence? Pressure? A bit of both swirling in circles? And then there's Waller, who just brings a different energy the moment he appears in uniform. Something about his presence feels like unanswered questions waiting to be explored. You see him out there and start wondering how he fits into the flow, how much the offense adjusts, how much he forces defenses to divert attention they barely have available. There's this lingering thought: is he ready to be impactful right away? Or will he only tease what could be? Does he bring steadiness? Or does he create anticipation no one knows how to navigate? The other two questionable names, Rasul Douglas and Benito Jones, didn't need dramatic roster moves to enter the picture, but their return still pushes a few internal expectations into place. They were limited in practice, but the moment the status flipped to set to play, everything surrounding the Miami defense took on a subtle shift. Douglas brings this confrontational posture on the outside, a quality that doesn't wait politely for opportunities. He forces moments. He invites conflict. There's no way around it. And Jones, well, he moves with that quiet force that doesn't need attention to be felt. He clogs. He disrupts. He holds ground in ways that don't show up in clean little numbers on a stat sheet. So here Miami is, entering Sunday with fewer doubts than expected, yet somehow carrying far more curiosity than relief. Because when players return, the weight of what they might change always comes along. And instead of uncertainty on the injury list, Miami's dealing with the quieter kind, the one that creeps in when a team finally becomes whole enough for expectations to grow claws. But look at how the roster shakes out on the other side. 5 healthy scratches. 5 names that won't touch the field, even though nothing is physically wrong with them. That always stirs something. It's not dramatic, but it's never empty either. It tells you about choices, hierarchy, the shape of the plan. Quinn Ewers sits in that emergency third quarterback role, one of those strange places where you're close enough to hear the heartbeat of the game, but distant enough to never touch it unless things go sideways in ways no one wants. It must feel like being suspended between usefulness and irrelevance in the same breath, watching everything unfold, knowing your presence is technically needed, yet almost certainly untapped. What does a player even do with that feeling on game day? A.J. Green III lands on the inactive list as well. Another corner on a day when Rasul Douglas returns. And you can feel the implications hidden beneath this choice. When one comes back, another steps aside. It's not personal. It's not dramatic. But it always leaves you wondering how tight the margins are at that position, how quickly roles shift, how quietly someone can drift out of the rotation without anyone naming it directly. Then there's Andre Carter, too. Linebacker depth can shape itself in strange ways, especially in a defense that likes to adjust its layers based on matchups. His absence from the active group says something about what Miami expects from New Orleans, even if they never articulate it. Maybe they're leaning heavier on speed. Maybe they trust their interior movement. Maybe Carter simply didn't fit the vision for this particular matchup, and that's all. Or maybe it signals something deeper, something that only becomes clear after kickoff, when the flow of the game exposes every choice made in advance. Taj Washington enters the list of scratches, with similar quiet intrigue. Wide receiver rooms often feel overpacked, especially on a team like Miami where production usually funnels through the same one or two targets. But when someone sits, you start asking questions. Did the game plan squeeze him out? Did special teams shift in a direction that didn't include him? Does his absence hint at a heavier reliance on returning playmakers, maybe even Waller? Or is it just one of those decisions that looks small until suddenly it isn't? And Matthew Butler sits right there too. A defensive tackle on a day when the trenches will matter more than anyone wants to admit. When a player at that position is scratched, especially when the opponent has known tendencies to test the interior, you can't help but wonder what that means for rotations. Does it show confidence in the returning group? Or does it reveal a gamble that might look brilliant or questionable, depending entirely on how the first quarter unfolds? All these names, all these choices, all these adjustments. It creates this restless atmosphere before the game even begins. Not chaotic, not calm, just layered, thick with curiosity. On the other side, New Orleans walks into this matchup dealing with their own complications. Without Alvin Kamara, everything about their rhythm changes. He's the kind of player who bends defensive priorities around him. With him gone, the Saints lose that shifting pressure he creates simply by existing in the backfield. And yet, even without him, this isn't a simplified opponent. Because Chris Olave, who carried a questionable tag into the weekend, will be out there. And that alone pulls the Miami secondary into unforeseen questions. How do you adjust when the player who destabilizes the backfield is out, but the one who stretches your corners thin is in? Does that change the pressure? Or just the direction of it? The Saints bring 7 inactives of their own, each one carrying weight in its own corner of the matchup. Ugo Amadi sits out, which chips away at their safety depth, a detail Miami cannot ignore, even if they pretend it's nothing. Regin Wright becomes another missing piece in the secondary, and every absence back there subtly widens the cracks. But does that matter the way it should when a defense adjusts on the fly? Does it open opportunities for matchups Miami has been waiting to exploit? Or does it force the Saints into a tighter, more concentrated defensive style that ends up complicating things? Barry Wesley out at tackle changes their protection picture, and that's exactly the kind of thing that can tilt a game in the strangest moments. When a line loses a piece, even a peripheral one, everything becomes more fragile. Every blitz becomes more unsettling. Every edge rush becomes a question with no comfortable answer. Zaire Mitchell-Payton won't be out there either, which adjusts how the Saints use their tight ends. John Ridgeway III and Christian Boyd both being in active clear space in the trenches that Miami might want to poke, test, or press into until something gives way. All these absences pile up in interesting ways. Not obvious ones. Not the kind that slam consequences into the game, but the kind that hum quietly beneath the surface, waiting for the right snap to reveal themselves. And maybe that's the real tension heading into this matchup. Not the injuries, not the returns, not the scratches, but the way all of these pieces pull at each other. The way one player coming back pushes another out. The way an opponent loses a centerpiece, but keeps a spark. The way every subtle move hints at something bigger, something forming right beneath the surface, something that no one will fully understand until the game decides to show it. Because isn't that the strange truth about days like this? You look at all the statuses and updates, and you can feel the story forming before kickoff. You can sense the momentum shifting, adjusting, reshaping itself. Yet nothing is certain. Nothing is clear. Everything is just on the edge of becoming something else. And Miami stands right there in the middle of it, carrying the weight of the returnees, the choices, the omissions, the expectations. What exactly does all this create for Sunday? How does a team respond when the pieces finally fall into place in ways they've waited for, yet the opponent arrives, carrying its own contradictions? Maybe the answer will arrive early, or maybe it will take the whole night to reveal itself. But the tension is already set, woven through every choice on both sidelines, waiting to spark as soon as the first snap cuts through the silence.